I'd like to introduce you to 5 people with very different stories. Each of them can attest to the benefits of exercise. I hope you'll find their words both encouraging and inspiring.
Hi, my name is Duncan. I'm age 55 and I've had Parkinson's now for 10 years. I was diagnosed in June 2003. After I got diagnosed, one of the first things the doctor told me was to get exercise, get regular exercise. So I began swimming, which is something I did as a kid. Parkinson's can interfere with the way you walk. My left leg will drag sometimes. My left hand has got a tremor to it, will get stiff. And so walking can be a challenge for me sometimes. And of course, as the illness progresses, it gets worse. But the swimming is, both sides are moving more or less together and moving smoothly through the water. And there's also this great stretch you get when you swim. So it's not only good for your heart muscles, cardiovascular system, and pulmonary system, but it's great stretching therapy, and it gets those endorphins going. So I'll do it now 3 or 4 times a week, a mile each time, and it's just fantastic. I'll get out of the water and I'll be exhausted, wiped out, and then an hour later I'm symptom-free for the next couple of hours, and that's been true since I've started 10 years ago. I just can't say enough about how beneficial it's been and how much it's improved my quality of life since I got diagnosed. Well, I have a swimming partner, and we've been swimming together now for the last 2 years, and we meet every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we'll swim 36 laps together, which is a mile. And I guess the most important thing is we have fun doing it. We enjoy doing it together, and we push each other to do the mile every time we get together, and motivate each other to come. And it's been far easier these last 2 years when I've been swimming with us to get the exercise done than it was, say, for the 8 before that, when I was pretty much swimming on my own. Having other people support me and encourage me helps me accomplish things. And exercising on a consistent basis it's rewarding, and it helps improve the quality of life, but at the same time, it requires some determination. I mean, to get in the water, in my case, and say I'm going to swim a mile, there are many, many times in the middle of it I've thought, you know, what am I doing? I feel awful. I feel tired. I've got a cramp in my foot. I want to get out and stop. And if I'm alone, I might do that. But with somebody else, we keep going. And by the time it's over, I'll say, I'm glad we did that. You would think the major impediment to exercise is your physical health, but it's not. It's your mental health. It's your mind. It's your mind saying, "Oh, I don't want to get out of the house. I don't want to push myself. I don't want to get in the water. It's too cold. I'm too tired. I got a cramp. Like yesterday was a difficult day, and I'm gonna take it easy today." It's sort of an ironic thing I found, that one's state of mind can be a bigger obstacle than one's physical health when it comes to an exercise routine. And I guess the only advice I'd give to people is just keep at it. I'd say just put one foot in front of the other. Do it. Just do it and have faith that the benefits will come. I'd say this too, don't set expectations that are too high. This is funny for me to say this after talking about all the great things exercise can do, but I would caution somebody against the danger of setting expectations that are too high at the beginning. Just set an expectation of getting somewhere, and let's say in the case of swimming, getting in the water 3 times a week and just swimming up and back one time. Just so I've done it. Get in the habit of just doing it as a routine, and then gradually increase it, or not. Just whatever is comfortable, try to build that routine into your life, and then the rest will take care of itself. You have to accept the limitations in some way, and without being defeated. You have to fight the limitations, but when they get the best of you, you have to say, you can't say I give up. You have to say I accept them, but I'll find some way around them. I'll find some other way to live and enjoy my life. And that's hard to do alone, I have found, because it's easy to get defeated and discouraged and to get down on yourself and feel sorry for yourself. And the wonderful thing about people who love you, who are around you, is that they'll say, you know, maybe you can't do this the way you did before, but how about this, or how about that, or maybe you can do this, or they say it's not as bad as you think. This is not the end, and there are ways you can still lead a good life in spite of the difficulties you have or the limitations you have. And people who love you can be an enormous support in that way. And so my girls and Marie do that. They do that for me all the time. It doesn't have to be a wife or daughters. Anybody who loves and supports you can play that role. But for me, it's been my family.
Hi, my name is Allison, and I'm 35, and I've been living with Parkinson's for 3 years. I remember my journey to finding out I had Parkinson's disease was multiple tests, which most people have to go through because there's no standardized test to find out if you have Parkinson's. But I remember sitting in the doctor's office, and I kind of already knew because I'd done some research on my own that I had Parkinson's, but hearing those words, it's kind of like a shot to the stomach. So I went home and I tried to tell my husband, but I didn't know the best way of telling him because I knew that he would be the one that needed to support me and get me through this. And so I told him, and his response was, yeah, I know. And I remember thinking like I had tried to hide it or tried to make it not as bad as I thought it was, and for him to just be so casual about it. So I remember I was crying and telling him that I didn't want to be a burden on him, that he didn't want this life. I wanted him to have something better. And he said a burden is something that's placed on you and not something that you choose. And for me, having that diagnosis and realizing that it didn't have to be a defining moment for me, that he was choosing me regardless if I had Parkinson's or not. Prior to getting it, I was in a lot of activities like cheerleading and gymnastics and marching band. I always liked being very active. And then when I got Parkinson's, I felt like I wouldn't be able to be the same person that I was. But I realized that as long as I still stay active, even though I can't be at the same level that I used to be at, I can still enjoy the same activities that I used to. I just have to understand that my body can't be maybe as perfect as I want it to be every day, and there's fluctuations. I think that just realizing that you want to try to delay the illness as long as you can, to slow the progression of the illness. And exercise is a huge part of that slowing of the progression of the illness. Because with Parkinson's, we start to lose those movements or those motions, or they become harder to do or difficult to get into certain positions or mobility, that the more that we can keep practicing those movements, we prolong the progression of the illness. So to delay your illness from taking over your body, exercise is a great component to add into it. Since I'm young onset, I feel that we kind of want challenges still, so I set goals for myself. So my goal was to run a 5K mud run last year. And I remember looking at the whole process of thinking what a whole entire mud run would consist of. It's a very overwhelming thought. But once I started taking little bits by bits and walking some minutes and then maybe trying to run for just a few minutes, I realized within a couple weeks I was able to run more. I could keep my breath easier instead of breathing hard. I think that it was kind of this aha moment of realizing the more I put energy into it and tried, you improve overall. So I was able to do my 5K mud run. I wasn't, tired and exhausted, and it was such a great feeling knowing that I had overcome something that I'd always wanted to do. So just giving it a little bit of energy and time. It's difficult in the beginning, but it got way easier towards the end, and it was so gratifying knowing I reached my goal. If you're a young onset diagnosed with Parkinson's, I think the best form of exercise is something that you appreciate and you like and you enjoy. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a class with other people with Parkinson's disease. It doesn't have to necessarily be a certain specific set of exercises. It's just something that you find that you enjoy, because that's what you're going to stick with. And yes, by all means, exercise with your friends that are non-Parkies, because it keeps your drive going and keeps your energy going, and then you might feel a little bit somewhat normal if you're with other friends than being in a class that might be overwhelming. I think the big thing is remembering that working out is exactly what it means, working out. It will be difficult and it will be challenging, because there'll be things that you may have never tried before or didn't realize were so difficult for you until you actually try them. But as time progresses and you stick with those things, even if it's just a few days a week, you'll see things improve. Your movements will be easier, maybe your strength will improve, you'll feel all over better, have better energy and better mental health too. How to stay motivated, that's a tricky one, especially with Parkinson's, because we have this wonderful thing called apathy, where we kind of have blah days. I call them the blah days, where you kind of just don't care. So finding motivation on those days are sometimes very difficult for myself and others. So my philosophy is fake it till you make it. So that's basically force yourself to do these activities until all of a sudden you don't need to force yourself as much. because you find the motivation by going and meeting other people, or you find that you're improving in your exercises, or you're finding that you feel better after the exercises. Sometimes you have to fake it until you actually make it. Exercise for me has opened up opportunities of realizing that Parkinson's doesn't have to be a life sentence, that you can actually grow with the Parkinson's and find other ways that you can exercise and find other things that you can enjoy, regardless of a diagnosis or not.
I'm Steve, and I'm 67 years old, and I was diagnosed with Parkinson's nearly 5.5 years ago. Never thought I'd get the opportunity to bicycle across the country, coast to coast, and I've done that twice since I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's. In 2010, I decided that I would bicycle across the country to bring more awareness to Parkinson's disease. And I think that helped me keep going, because if I was just doing it as a vacation, I probably would have given up on the steep roads going up the North Cascades in Washington State. I started in Anacortes, Washington, and finished 4,224 miles later in Edisto Island, South Carolina. But when I hit the roads going across the North Cascades, I didn't realize how heavy the trailer was that I was pulling, or how steep the grades were. And finally dawned on me that I didn't need to bicycle across the country or go 400 miles across Washington State. All I needed to do was make it 100 feet up the road. And that's the way I made it across the country. It was 100 feet at a time. When I got towards the end of the ride, people kept asking me, "What are you going to do next?" And I thought, next? I'm bicycling across the country now. What do you mean, next? You got to keep in mind that the previous longest bicycle trip I had made was 600 miles in Arizona, with a truck hauling all my gear and with 150 other bicyclists, when I was 25 years younger than when I got diagnosed with Parkinson's. But 3 years ago, I went over 4,000 miles alone, pulling a trailer with all my gear. No truck, no escort, nobody else with me except on extremely rare occasions for short lengths of time. So I keep pushing the boundaries, not just for where I'm at with my disease, but where I was at the prime of my life. Parkinson's is a disease you have to be proactive with. It can take control of you if you don't take control of it. My neurologist, who isn't prone to hand out compliments, the other day told me that I'd progressed a lot more slowly than he expected that I would be at this stage of the disease, and he attributes that to exercise, and he shows newspaper articles about me to his other patients to try and spur them on to do exercise. That was a surprising pat on the back from somebody that doesn't pat people on the back. Continuing to practice my instruments helps me maintain my motor skills, especially my fine motor skills, but it also helps me maintain just my self-esteem, my well-being in life. For most musicians, not being able to play their instrument is like losing an arm or a hand. And so when I was starting to lose ability to play my flute, that was bothersome to me. I know that I can't play as well as I did before, and that some skills will slowly decline, but I don't need to rush it. For example, my tremor is pretty obvious right at this point, but I've never demonstrated a tremor when I've been playing an instrument. never. Another thing is my continuing to play the various instruments I enjoy playing has helped me maintain fine motor skills that would have long since deteriorated at this point. Many people with Parkinson's handwriting gets smaller and smaller, and mine has not done that at this point. I've proven that I can develop what we call neuroplasticity, using alternative ways in my brain to retrain myself to play the flute. And if you have the motivation to maintain doing what you enjoy, you will feel much better and live well.
I'm Wendy, and I've had Parkinson's now for 6 years, and from the time the tremor started. And I'm 59. You've got to find a way to overcome some of the obstacles. Like for me, with my Parkinson's, I deal a lot with fatigue. But you know, fatigue, I hate that word. It makes me feel like I'm using it as like an excuse to not take care of myself, or like to get out and exercise is the main thing that I've got to do. So I've got a family that just pushes me. So on the days where I don't feel like exercising, it's like, Mom, you've got to get out and exercise is what's gonna make you feel better. So staying motivated. Somehow you've got to keep that, you know, have an inspiration that is gonna keep you on target. And my family does that for me. They're right there participating in everything, and if it means that they go exercise with me just to get me to exercise. My son takes me to his workout room where he lifts weights, and lifting weights is not one of my favorite things to do, but when I'm doing it with him, I love it. Or with Angie, you know, she's my oldest daughter. She'll say, Mom, just go onto the campus and go for a walk with me. Well, I got so mad at her one day because she was walking too fast, and I said, could you please slow down? I'm 30 years older than you, and I weigh a lot more than you do, and you're walking too fast. And she said, but Mom, if you can talk and walk, you're not walking fast enough. You need to get your heart rate up. So, you know, they push. And sometimes they push enough that it triggers buttons in me, and then I'm, you know, yelling at them. And then later I apologize and say, you know what, you're right, because that walk did me so much good. One of the things I think exercise does for me is it just lifts my day. So I feel like when I'm finished, I actually have more energy. And you know, that's not true every time, but I would say the majority of the time, that's what exercise really gives you a better quality day. You feel better about yourself. I think even people that don't have Parkinson's that are exercising, if I think of what it does for everyone, mentally, physically, it's just a good lifestyle to have. So it's become a family project. I mean, my Parkinson's has totally been a family support. And I think I need that, you know, and it's really helped me a lot. So I live in exercise clothes, basically, because that way it reminds me that that's what I've got to be doing. When a person gets Parkinson's, I think you forget too often about the effects it has on the entire family. And so for a while, I felt so guilty that some of the things that Parkinson had done to me and the changes that it had made on my life was cheating the kids. It was like, instead of them inviting all their friends over for a big meal that Mom had just made, Mom wasn't making the big meals anymore because I was needing to spend time doing other things other than cooking meals. You know, I'm exercising to take care of my health. And basically, after a few years, they've come back to say, Mom, you've got to do the things that make you feel good, make you have quality days. we can take care of ourselves. You don't need to be doing these kinds of things for us anymore. Even on those days where I don't feel like it's one of those things I want to do, I get out and I force myself to do it. And usually once I'm involved in doing the exercise, it ends up being a lot of fun. And especially when family join me and do it with me. I'm not one that likes to do the outdoor hiking by myself. I would much rather have a group of people that I do it with. And I'm just fortunate that I have people that I can exercise with. So I think it's an important thing for anybody with Parkinson's to, if you're not exercising, get out there and start doing anything that you enjoy. Just choose something that you like to do.
Hi, I'm Gary. I'm almost 74 years old. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in February of 2008. I lost the ability to write a check. Many people don't realize that there's so many different symptoms that you get with Parkinson's. But my handwriting got smaller and smaller and unrecognizable. And one day I wrote a check, and I tore the check out of the book and put it on the table, my desk. The phone rang and I took the call. And after I finished the call, I picked up the check and put it in an envelope, and I looked at it and I couldn't read it. And that was very frustrating for me. That was the day that I think I hit bottom with this disease and said, I'm going to do something about this. So I researched it and I found out that this micrographia, which they call it, can be fixed with strengthening your hands. So I got hand grips and I do a lot of these flicks. And it took, I would say 8 to 10 weeks, and my handwriting was better than ever. That was an important day for me, because that was the first time I realized that you can do something about this. This is the degenerative disease. If you're degenerating, how do you get a function back? I didn't understand that. And what else could I get back? So the next thing I attacked was my foot. I never thought that I would ever be faced with an issue where I couldn't run. When I first got Parkinson's, running was very hard because I couldn't synchronize my steps. My left leg would not cooperate, and I actually tried it a couple of times, and I felt unsafe. I felt I'm going to trip and fall. And I was really into hiking a lot, and I loved getting on the mountains, and that was tough to deal with. That I wasn't going to be able to do that. And when I started to exercise, do the exercises that I did, and I started to get some of that back, I started off hiking like I had never hiked before. So I started off on real basic, easy trails. I started using poles for safety and for better posture and so on. And one thing led to another, and last summer, there were some mountains that I climbed that I never thought I'd be anywhere near. It was the most rewarding experience of my life. Now, it took me a lot longer than it ever did before, and I didn't care. And on one particular mountain, I think everybody in the Milky Way galaxy passed me. But it never bothered me, because I was back on a mountain doing what I love to do. I feel like having had Parkinson's has made me a much better human being. And just to give you an example of what I meant by that, when Annie and my wife Annie and I used to hike, sometimes I would be running on those mountains. And after I got Parkinson's, we would go hiking on the same trail that we were on, and I would say, I don't remember seeing this. And she said, you idiot, when you came through here, you were running 100 miles an hour. So I became a smell of roses guy. I'm still on a mountain that I love, but look at this scenery. When somebody who's never had Parkinson's, when they get out of bed at night, or in the morning, they throw their covers off, they roll over, they stand up, and they go about their business. When I do that, as soon as I stand up, I say, yes, I can still do this. It's a victory. So I'm a better person, because I know I appreciate everything in life, that things that I took for granted, that you take for granted. Somebody with Parkinson's like me says, I don't take anything for granted anymore. And I know how to smell the roses, and I know how to enjoy life. People with Parkinson's, the camaraderie is special. I don't quite know the answer for why that is, but I've seen other group classes, and you see a lot of individual things. But in a group Parkinson's class, it's very special. And I think it's because people come to the class and they're not embarrassed. It's a sanctuary. And they're all there fighting the same disease, and that they're making a lot of noise and cheering each other on, and it's very, very special. It's more special than any group exercise class I've ever been in. So I would encourage you to, working on one-on-one is fine, but I would encourage you to find a class, regardless of where you are. There's undoubtedly going to be some classes especially dedicated to Parkinson's disease, and I encourage you to do it because the camaraderie is really what makes it special. It's important to know that when you first start off exercising and you have Parkinson's, you're going to get hit hard with fatigue. It's not going to be easy. I mean, I think most of us have uncovered that, and I see that in people that I'm teaching. Your attitude is so important. You say, I know this is going to affect me. It's going to tire me out. So you take a break and you come back, and every day you do it a little bit more. What I've noticed in myself and a few others is once you start restoring one thing, all of a sudden everything gets easier. And there's no feeling in the world like taking a disease like this where I couldn't get out of bed without help. I couldn't get into a car without help. And now it's not a problem. And when you get relieved of that, and you can do that by yourself, get out of the bed in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. You don't have to call somebody else. That's, as the Davis Phinney Foundation said, every victory counts. I never thought that a victory would be being able to get out of bed without assistance or getting into a car, but it is, and that's what it means by that. When you do that through exercise, and you can get it back, but do not quit, because if you quit, you're done. And it's very important. My philosophy with exercise and in teaching all of these classes that I've taught is the most important thing is a statement that I read somewhere in research that said, push past that self-selected energy expenditure. Those are $1 million words for raise the bar. You've got to know that when you get to a point and you've recovered something, you can't sit back and say, okay, it's status quo, I'm going to take a break. Because I tell you, Mr. Parkinson's, he's not going to take a break. He's going to keep coming after you, and you got to keep fighting back. So you got to keep raising that bar.